The August 9, 2011 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
President Adair.
Here.
Ms. Andrews. Mr. Antelli. Mr. Barker. Mr. Baroth. Mr. Beebe. Mr. Cassetti. Mr. Colby. Mr. Daniele. Mrs. Draw. Mr. Eckel. Mr. Esposito. Mr. Gamble. Mr. Gamina. Mr. Haney. Mr. Hanna. Mr. Hyder. Mr. Howland. Ms. Kaylee. Mr. Lee. Mr. Lightfoot. Mr. Monero. Mr. McCann. Mr. O'Brien. Dr. Quattro. Mr. Rocco. Mr. Tucciarello. Mrs. Valerio. Mr. Yolovich.
Please stay seated at this time, and like each of you at this time to reflect with a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Legislator Cynthia Cayley will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flags. Legislator Cayley. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You've received copies of the journal for the day 8 July 12, 2011. Without exception, the journal stands approved as submitted. There's a hearing loop in place tonight to assist those of hearing impaired. Anyone requiring assistance should inquire at our clerk's office.
If you have a cellular phone, pager, or other electronic device in your possession, we would request that you silence them for the duration of the meeting. And thank you for your cooperation.
Legislators, the referrals submitted to the legislature for the next committee cycle are in your folders. At this time, I would like to introduce Larry Staub, Director of the Monroe County Parks Department, who is here to tell us about our plant of the month. Mr. Staub.
Thank you, President Adair. Good evening. I'm here to present this month's plant of the month, which is Calla Bracoa. Often known by its nickname, Million Bells, it is also sometimes called the mini petunia. While related, they are not the same plant. Calla Bracoa is grown in most climates, including ours as an annual. It is actually a perennial in South Florida and South Texas. The flowers of the Calla Bracoa may be purple, blue, pink, magenta, red, orange, yellow, or white. Calla Bracoa needs full sun and will tolerate light shade but will not bloom as well. Calla Bracoa is typically grown in hanging baskets or at the front of a garden because of its trailing habit. Calla Bracoa is also attractive to hummingbirds. Calla Bracoa is considered low maintenance because it does not require deadheading. However, it does need regular watering and feeding to bloom well. And we hope that you all enjoy this wonderful display featured here in the legislative chambers of Calla Bracoa, August 2011's Plant of the Month. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Staub. I would also like to make mention of the Calla Bracoa is native to South America as well. Thank you. You think it's easy doing this, huh? This evening there are several proclamations scheduled. Madam Clerk.
Would Bess Watts and Ann Tischer please come forward? Also President Jeffrey R. Adair and legislators Ted O'Brien and C. Stephen Eckel. Whereas Ann Tischer and Bess Watts were married in 2004 on the Canadian side of Niagara Falls after being the first same-sex couple to request and be denied a marriage license in the city of Rochester. Ann, a longtime community activist, and Bess, the current president of CSEA, Monroe County Local 828, together advocated rigorously for domestic partnership benefits for Monroe County employees. And whereas mentored by Monroe County legislators about the political process, strategy, and tactics, Bess and Ann started a grassroots effort in Rochester to gain full marriage equality rights for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender individuals in New York State. Bess founded the Rochester and Finger Lakes chapter of Pride at Work, and Ann began Equality Rochester, building unprecedented support for LGBT issues in the community. They formed alliances and built coalitions, drummed up public support, held rallies, lobbied lawmakers, and urged people to contact their lawmakers. At one point, local groups were writing over 1,000 letters to legislators each week. Ann and Bess raised money, networked statewide and nationally, building a huge database and coordinating their efforts with Human Rights Campaign, Marriage Equality New York, Empire State Pride Agenda, Log Cabin Republicans, Freedom to Marry, and New Yorkers for Marriage Equality. And whereas Bess and Ann are recognized as being instrumental in the successful passage of the marriage equality legislation in New York State this year. Since helping to deliver marriage equality to all citizens of New York State, Bess and Ann were named the Grand Marshals of the 2011 Pride celebration. Recently, Bess was named to serve on the National Executive Board of Pride at Work, representing small chapters around the country. Bess and Ann started out looking for leaders to their movement, but ended up being the leaders they were looking for. Now, therefore, let it be known that we, Jeffrey R. Adair, President, Ted O'Brien, Democratic Minority Leader, and C. Stephen Eckel, Legislator District 26, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature on this day, August 9, 2011, do hereby honor Bess Watts and Ann Tischer for their dedication and hard work in helping to bring marriage equality to every citizen in New York State.
Thank you, President Adair and Minority Leader O'Brien and Mr. Eckel and members of this body. Bess and I are honored. There is more to celebrate about the passage of marriage equality in New York than just the historic advancement of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender rights, or even the protection of loving same-sex couples and their families, though that is huge. Maybe the bigger picture was the successful demonstration of American democratic principles in action. In this time of pervasive corporate and elitist control of our political process, when we are seeing the erosion of the power of the individual, this success proves that citizen activists can still make change and influence outcomes. It's not an easy process, but it is a precious one, and it still works. That's something to celebrate. Change is driven by committed people who are willing to play the part of David to the Goliath of a daunting political system. So we would like to share this recognition with a couple of the LGBT civil rights leaders who have worked here in Rochester for years. Ovi Overmeyer, who is part of Pride at Work, AFL-CIO, and Todd Plank, who is a longtime activist and the current president of Equality Rochester. Missing in action are Tom Privateer and Joe Maleka-Voigt, who is Marriage Equality New York. These four people have done a lot of good for a lot of people for many years. There is much that remains to be done to ensure that LGBT citizens and every citizen gets equal treatment here in Monroe County and across the nation. But as long as we have fierce advocates for social justice like these people, we live in hopeful times. Thank you again on behalf of everyone who helped make marriage equality a reality in New York. Thanks.
Would Connor Grossman please come forward? Also, President Adair and legislators Debbie Draw and E. Daniel Quattro. Whereas at the age of 5, Connor Grossman has had a large impact on his family and our entire community. Connor wants nothing more than to find a cure for multiple sclerosis, a disease that his mother has been battling for 5 years. Connor started Marbles for MS, a nonprofit that sells paintings that he has created using marbles, paint, and a cigar box. And whereas Connor creates his paintings by first placing paper in the bottom of a cigar box, he then dips the marbles into paint and drops them into the box one at a time, closes the lid, and shakes. The end result is a piece of art that will be sold to help find a cure for MS. And whereas Connor, with the help of his brother Jackson, and parents Annette and Michael have made great strides in the fight to find a cure for multiple sclerosis. Their website, marblesforms.org, recorded its first sale within its first hour, and Connor successfully sold 300 paintings via the website within the first 3 weeks. And whereas Connor's contributions towards finding a cure for MS are not limited to the money that he has raised through his organization. Marbles for MS is raising awareness in the community for multiple sclerosis. Connor's commitment towards helping others is an inspiration to us all. Now therefore we, Jeffrey R. Adair, President, Debbie Draw, Legislator District 9, and E. Daniel Quattro, Legislator Majority Leader, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature, do hereby recognize and congratulate Connor Grossman for his work with Marbles for MS and his efforts towards finding a cure for multiple sclerosis. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Would Gerald Phelan please come forward? Also, President Adair and legislators Mark J. Cassetti, Rick Antelli, and Jeffrey L. McCann. Whereas for over 40 years, the Greece Police Athletic League guided by the motto, filling playgrounds, not prisons, has helped reduce juvenile crime in the town of Greece. The program provides athletic activities for the youth of Greece and a forum where kids and officers can interact in a positive manner. Today, the Greece Police Athletic League has 300 kids playing summer softball annually and numerous police and civilian volunteers. And whereas, as founder of the Greece Police Athletic League, Gerald Phelan has made a difference in the lives of thousands of Greece youth residents that have participated in this program. The Greece Police Athletic League began with a boxing program and then developed a football and softball program. The positive interaction of police officers and young people has been the hallmark of the program. Gerald remains active with the Greece Police Athletic League and has volunteered every day since he retired from the police department in 1993. And whereas Gerald has served in other capacities that also reflect his commitment to our Greece youth. He started the Greece Police Department Youth Division in 1974 after attaining a $1 million grant. This was one of the first youth police programs in the area and existed until 1993. Gerald is also a former Greece School Board member and past president. And whereas Gerald's commitment to the youth in our community is admirable, the values that the Greece Police Athletic League emphasizes, including character, sportsmanship, and positive attitude, are essential for our community to continue to thrive. We thank Gerald for his commitment to instilling core values in our younger generation. Now, therefore, we, Jeffrey R. Adair, President, Rick Antelli, Legislator District 7, Mark J. Cassetti, Legislator District 5, and Jeffrey L. McCann, Legislator District 19, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature, do hereby recognize and congratulate Gerald Phelan for his service and dedication to the town of Greece as founder of the Greece Police Athletic League, which has positively impacted the youth in our community. Congratulations.
On behalf of my family and myself, I would like to thank the members of the legislature. Also on behalf of my son, Patrick, who's a captain with the Greece Police and who is now president of the PAL board and spends a great deal of time. And also all the many citizens who have donated time and money. There is no tax money in the Greece PAL, and there are no paid personnel. Everyone is a volunteer. Also, many of the officers who over 40 years, and this year is no exception, have volunteered their time, their off-duty time, to be with these youngsters. And lastly, but not leastly at all, I want to thank you most sincerely on behalf of the thousands of boys and girls who have had the opportunity to not only play baseball and box and play football, but to learn that the policemen in their community, the town of Greece, are their friends. Thank you very much.
Would representatives from the Henrietta Ambulance please come forward? Also President Jeffrey R. Adair and Legislator John J. Howland. Whereas this community is blessed to have the award-winning Henrietta Ambulance serving the emergency services needs of residents of the town of Henrietta and surrounding communities. Through several creative initiatives, including a medical supply loan closet, a community AED purchasing training program, and many others, Henrietta Ambulance has made itself an asset to our community. And whereas earlier this year, the Monroe Livingston Regional Emergency Services Council named Henrietta Ambulance the Agency of the Year for the year 2010. This distinction was given as a result of the careful planning by professionals and volunteers who consistently strive to increase their standard of care and services to their community. And whereas, more recently in a study conducted by Professional Research Consultants, an independent company which conducts surveys and monitors performance of medical care professionals, Henrietta Ambulance was given the 5-Star Excellence Award, which places them in the top 10% of patient satisfaction nationwide. And whereas, today, Henrietta Ambulance continues in its tradition of providing professional, friendly, and excellent medical care to the residents of Henrietta and neighboring communities in need by answering over 5,800 calls for emergency assistance in the last year alone. Now, therefore, we, Jeffrey R. Adair, President, and John J. Howland, Legislator, District 13, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature, do hereby recognize and congratulate the Henrietta Ambulance on being named the Agency of the Year by the Monroe Livingston Regional EMS Council and for receiving the 5-Star Excellence Award. Congratulations.
Thank you. 2 years ago when I stood up here for the same award, I didn't realize I was going to be back here so quick because I made a promise at that meeting that we were going to improve survival rates for cardiac arrest patients. I did a little better than I projected. We started a program last year that has expanded through the county. The City of Rochester Fire Department and the Rural Metro Ambulance also use the program. And we're seeing survival rates from witnessed cardiac arrest upwards of 50 or 60%. Now, mind you, the national average is 5 to 6%. Jim and I just got back from a conference of regional or national EMS folks, and they were hoping to improve the national average by 50% of the current number, which is, if you play the numbers, it's basically 10%, which we're already well above. So that is not just Henrietta. That's all of your constituents, all the ambulance companies in Monroe and Livingston County are working at this, and that's a county average. That's not a Henrietta number. So when you go back to your areas, you should thank your ambulance companies. They're doing a great job. Thank you very much for the award.
Would Fred Costello please come forward? Also, President Jeffrey R. Adair and Legislator Paul Haney. Whereas Fred Costello, a national performer and local Rochester legend, has been the organist for the Rochester Red Wings for 35 seasons and over 2,500 games. Recently, Fred was honored with the second annual Spirit of the International League Award, which was created to recognize the essential role filled by individuals who are dedicated to helping fans have the most enjoyable experience possible when visiting International League ballparks. And whereas, born in Syracuse, New York, Fred's lifelong love of baseball brought him to MacArthur Stadium, home of the Syracuse Chiefs, where he spent part of his youth working on the grounds crew. There he met Don Labruzzo, who later became the general manager of the Rochester Red Wings and hired Fred as the team's organist in 1977. And whereas Fred is an accomplished jazz musician that has played and recorded with some of the greatest musicians in the country, performing in Las Vegas, Hollywood, Tijuana, Atlantic City, and countless places in between. Featured on NBC and the New York Times, Newsweek, USA Today, and the Regis Philbin Show for his extraordinary talents, Fred has turned down 5 major league teams as an organist, including the Yankees and the Mets. Fred has also recently released his autobiography, A Lifetime of Nightclubs and Ballparks, last year. For many years, Fred was also the organist for the Rochester Americans. And whereas, for nearly 3 decades, Fred ran his own baseball clinic for youth, local youth, that often featured Red Wings players, which is now called the Red Wings Baseball Camp. Fred and his family are devoted to the Red Wings organization. His wife, Kathy, has been a game night secretary for over 25 years, and his son, Terry, recently working as clubhouse manager. Fred is, and for many years has been, the only active organist in the International League. Fred Costello's dedication to his family, his music, Rochester, and his love for baseball is legendary to all that know him. Now, therefore, let it be known that we, Jeffrey R. Adair, President, and Paul Haney, Legislator, District 23, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature on this day, August 9th, 2011, do hereby honor Fred Costello for 35 years of entertainment and service to the Rochester community. Congratulations.
What more can I say? Thank you so much. I'll keep this very brief and just tell you that it's so great to be honored for something that you enjoy doing. I tell people that I enjoy going to the ball games as much today as I did my first game in 1977. And as a kid growing up in Syracuse, my dream was to be a great ball player. I did get to play a little semi-pro ball around Syracuse, but then I spent the next 11 years traveling in 43 different states with my band. And when the dust settles, I'm a musician at the ballpark, the best of both worlds. So I couldn't be happier. Again, thank you so much for this. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Would representatives from Snyderman's Hardware please come forward? Also, President Jeffrey R. Adair and Legislator Glenn J. Gamble. Whereas, founded by Louis Snyderman and his son Sam in 1953, Snyderman's Hardware is a family-owned and operated business at 519 Joseph Avenue that has been a mainstay in the community for nearly 60 years. And whereas Louis and Sam built Snyderman's Hardware as a service-oriented hardware store, by 1963, Louis had retired from the business, leaving Sam and his wife Estelle to take over the day-to-day operations. Estelle was a familiar face at the front counter, directing customers through the maze of goods on the shelves, threading the pipe, and making keys. Sam and Estelle's reputation in the surrounding neighborhood contributed to Snyderman's escaping any damage during the race riots. In fact, they were open the next day. And whereas Snyderman's Hardware offers a multitude of services such as window and screen repair, plumbing, and electrical work, they make nearly 50 keys a day, thread pipes, and regularly offer free service information to anyone that comes in the store. The walls, shelves, and narrow aisles of Snyderman's are filled with hundreds of hard-to-find items that save their customers time and money. The staff with over 60 years of knowledge and experience diligently assists customers in finding what they're looking for. And whereas Snyderman's Hardware is the epitome of a family-run small business in the city of Rochester. After Sam and Estelle retired, Rodney Snyderman managed the store before handing the reins over to his nephew, Jeffrey Metchick, the great-grandson of Louis. Today, Snyderman's focuses on contracting services, working with the Southeast Area Coalition, Action for a Better Community, and Group 14621 to offer a number of home improvement and repair contracting services to many neighborhoods. We commend Snyderman's Hardware for 4 generations and nearly 60 years of dedicated service to the Rochester community. Now, therefore, let it be known that we, Jeffrey R. Adair, President, and Glenn J. Gamble, Legislator District 22, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature, do hereby honor Snyderman's Hardware for nearly 60 years of providing an exceptional service and expertise to a grateful community. Congratulations.
We will now recess for the purpose of holding a public hearing. I declare open the public hearing on resolution intro number 282 of 2011 entitled approving sale by negotiating contracts of 2 parcels of land owned by the Cultural Center Commission to the University of Rochester.
There are no speakers registered for this hearing.
There being none, I declare this public hearing closed and will reconvene the August 9, 2011 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature. There are no formal reports this evening, and we will now hold the public forum. We have one person registered to address the legislature, Mrs. Rossi.
Would Chris Safuto please come forward?
I was afraid I was the only one when I called at noon, and I was the only one. First, I want to congratulate my union sisters, Ann and Bess, for a job well done. Well, I'm back. And again, I'm back to remind you about the wonderful employees that Monroe County has working for you. You know, what I have discovered in the last few months is that you, our legislators, and us, the employees, are not very different. Why, you may be asking yourself. Well, let me tell you. We have the same goals in life. We as employees believe that we should have a fair contract with fair wages and reasonable benefits, and you, as legislators, believe that you should be elected to the position you hold. You are out in the community convincing citizens that you are worthy of their votes, and we are here convincing you that we are worthy of a fair contract with fair wages and benefits. We all know that the services we all provide are very important to the members of this community. Therefore, I again ask you to support our goal of a fair contract for the hardworking men and women who make each and every one of you look good. We are now in our 3rd year without a contract, and yet we still come to work, do the work of the people that is expected of us, just like yourselves, to meet the community's needs. Monroe County carries on its day-to-day operations because Monroe County works because we do. Thank you.
This concludes the public forum.
We will now continue with the considerations of motions, resolutions, and notices. Will the clerk please read the next item on the agenda?
Item number 1, referral 11-0166.
Moved by Legislator Holland, second by Legislator Hanna. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing there's no discussion, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The item carries.
Item number 2, referral 11-0.
Moved by Legislator Holland, second by Legislator Hanna. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing there's none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The item carries.
Item number 3, referral 11-0179.
Moved by Legislator Daniele, second by Legislator Yolovich. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing there's no discussion, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Item carries.
Item number 4, referral 11-0179.
Moved by Legislator Daniele, second by Legislator Yolovich. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The item carries.
Item number 5, referral 11-0193.
Moved by Legislator Valerio, second by Legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Item carries.
Item number 6, referral 11-0193.
Moved by Legislator Valerio, second by Legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Legislator Haney.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like initially to address a question to the acting county attorney. Is my understanding correct that due to a court decision a couple of years ago, well, maybe 3 or 4, that the legislature is prohibited from amending the budget, but can only vote it yes or no?
Through you, Mr. President, that's correct. The vote on the community college budget is either a yes or no vote. The legislature does not have the authority to amend the budget here on the floor.
Right. Thank you. I think that court decision is unfortunate, Mr. President, but nonetheless it is. Since we're only allowed to vote yes or no, I intend to vote no on the budget tonight, and I have 3 reasons for doing so. And let me say initially that I don't want my negative vote to be misinterpreted, because I certainly think very highly of MCC and indeed of its new president. I think both are doing an excellent job. But nonetheless, budgets are budgets. The first issue, Mr. President, is that I am distressed that the community college, according to its audited financial statements from last August 31st, they're on an August 31st fiscal year, had $44.8 million in cash sitting in money market accounts, $27.8 million at M&T Bank and $17 million at Chase Bank. And this amount has been growing for some time. It grows at the rate of about $4 million a year for reasons we'll see in a couple of minutes. So that one might anticipate that by August 31st of this year, there'll probably be something like $48 or $49 million sitting in those money market accounts. Now, at the Ways and Means Committee meeting, the college's CFO indicated that the college is earning 0.23% interest on those money market accounts. Now, that's not surprising. Any of us that have money in money market accounts, I know my own money market account at M&T Bank for about a year has been paying 0.1% in interest. We also learned at the Ways and Means Committee that while the amount that's at Chase Bank never varies, the amount at M&T Bank does vary somewhat, as during the course of the year amounts have to be withdrawn for cash flow purposes and then put back. It had been asked at the Ways and Means Committee that we be informed as to how much they need for cash flow purposes, and to my knowledge, we've not received that answer. But let's estimate that perhaps they need as much as $9 million of it for cash flow purposes. That means, Mr. President, that a cool $40 million could be permanently invested in some kind of an investment that would yield more than 0.23% interest. For example, if that money were invested today in 10-year Treasury notes, they could earn 2.3% interest. And the day of the Ways and Means Committee meeting, they could have earned 3%, but the interest rate on Treasury securities has dropped in the last 2 weeks. At any rate, the 2.3% that they could earn, if this money were invested in 10-year Treasury notes, would be a good 2% more than what they're currently earning. The additional interest on this money would amount to $800,000 a year. Now, that number is important because the college is increasing student tuition this year by 1%, which amounts to $600,000 a year. So that if the college's money was what I would call prudently invested, it would mean that they would not have to be increasing tuition. And indeed, they'd have $200,000 left over that perhaps they could apply to the technology fee, which next year is increasing by 66%. Or alternatively, the $800,000 they could earn in interest income would eliminate the need for 2/3 of the increase in the county financial support for the college next year. The second reason I'm voting against the budget, Mr. President, is because every year MCC accrues and funds an account for what accountants call other post-employment benefit obligations, or affectionately known by accountants as OPEB, O-P-E-B. This is the liability which entities have for post-employment health insurance costs. And the Governmental Accounting Standards Board issued a ruling, I guess 4 or 5 years ago, that all governmental entities had to accrue over a 30-year period the liability for these post-employment health insurance benefits on its books. The Governmental Accounting Standards Board did not require that the liability be funded. That is to say, it did not require that the money actually be set aside to fund this liability. And the reason for that is because unless an entity goes out of existence, it will never in effect have to pay the liability, because the entities also every year are expensing the cost of that year's health insurance premiums for retirees. At the Ways and Means Committee meeting, the college's CFO indicated that the MCC budget for next year includes $5 million to fund this liability, which in effect will never have to be paid. MCC is, to my knowledge, the only governmental entity that I know of that is actually funding this liability. The County of Monroe does not fund the liability. Onondaga Community College doesn't fund it. Erie County Community College doesn't fund it. For a while, some school districts were funding it, and the state comptroller actually told the school districts they had to stop funding it. I believe it is unnecessary and inappropriate for the college to be funding this liability, which in effect, it is the taxpayers and the students that are paying this $5 million. And the only thing that will be done with the $5 million is further increase this pile of cash that is currently sitting in these money market accounts. If the community college was not funding the liability, if it did not have it in its budget as an expense, and again let me state, the County of Monroe doesn't have it in its budget as an expense. And the County of Monroe's liability, County of Monroe is accruing the liability on its balance sheet as it is required to do, but the County of Monroe, like, as I said, any governmental entity that I'm familiar with, is not funding that liability. Why is this important? If they were not funding this $5 million liability, Mr. President, we would not have to be increasing the county's contribution to the college by the $1.2 million that we are, and we would not have to be increasing the student tuition at the community college. Now, some of us received a letter from the college today about these issues, and the letter from the college makes reference, it says in 2 or 3 places, that if they didn't fund it, the college would be forced to keep, quote, 2 sets of books, end of quote. Mr. President, that is a real stretch. The County of Monroe does not fund it, and I would never accuse Mr. Adair of keeping 2 sets of books for the County of Monroe. It is perfectly acceptable to be accruing the liability on the balance sheet, but not budgeting the expense in the annual operating budget. Now, this brings me for the third reason that I'm voting against this, Mr. President, and that has to do with the 2% property tax cap that the state legislature, wisely or unwisely, adopted this spring. The members of this body will recall reading an article probably 6 or 8 weeks ago in the Democrat and Chronicle, in which the state comptroller's office had indicated that an increase in the chargebacks on the county tax bill would be charged to the respective communities when calculating the 2% cap on the levies. The state comptroller's office has changed its opinion. NISAC, the State Association of Counties, had a webinar 2 weeks ago program that I was able to listen in on. At that session, a representative of the state comptroller's office stated 2 things. Number one, they have not reached a definitive conclusion, but will be issuing their final set of rules on the subject in early September. But secondly, and more importantly for our discussion this evening, the Deputy State Comptroller indicated that the Comptroller's current thinking is that an increase in the county services levy will be charged against the 2% cap that a county has for its property tax levy, if it is the county that is levying the charge. There were many questions on this webinar about how the chargebacks work. The Deputy State Comptroller indicated that only if counties are literally sending bills to the municipalities and the municipalities are levying the chargeback, only then, as was the thinking of the Comptroller's office at least 2 weeks ago, only then would this be charged against the 2% cap on the municipality as opposed to the 2% cap on the county. Now, why is that important to us? That means, Mr. President, that by approving this budget and approving the additional $1.2 million county contribution to MCC, which contribution is funded out of chargebacks on the county tax bill, that this will be charged against the 2% cap on increases in the county's property tax levy. So when we approve this process tonight, Mr. President, we are taking the first chunk out of the 2% cap which the county has, which means that when Mr. Adair goes to prepare the regular county budget and present it to this legislature sometime this fall, that he will have a cap of something less than 2%. I don't have an estimate of what it would be, but something less than 2%. And we need to be aware of that. And for those reasons, Mr. President, I would urge my fellow fiscal conservatives in the chamber tonight to join me in voting against this budget. I'd much rather be amending the budget, but I can't do that. All we can do, Mr. President, is vote no on the budget, have the budget go back to the community college, in which case they can amend the budget and send it back to us for approval. But for these three reasons, Mr. President, I would urge my fellow fiscal conservatives in the chamber to vote no on the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion at this time? Seeing that there's none, I'll move to a roll call vote.
Dr. Quattro? Yes. Mr. O'Brien? Yes. Ms. Andrews? No. Mr. Antelli? Yes. Mr. Barker? Yes. Mr. Baroth? Yes. Mr. Beebe? Yes. Mr. Cassetti? Yes. Mr. Colby? Yes. Mr. Daniele? Yes. Mrs. Straw? Yes. Mr. Eckel? No. Mr. Esposito? Mr. Gamble? No. Mr. Gamina? Yes. Mr. Haney? No. Mr. Hanna? Yes. Mr. Hyder? Yes. Mr. Holland? Yes. Ms. Cayley? Mr. Lee? Mr. Lightfoot? Mr. Monero? Mr. McCann? Yes. Mr. Rocco? Mr. Tucciarello? Yes. Mrs. Valerio? Yes. Mr. Yolovich? Yes. President Adair?
Yes.
22-7. Budget is adopted.
Next item.
Item number 7, referral 11-0187.
Moved by Legislator Draw, seconded by Legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The item carries.
Item number 8, referral 11-0188.
Moved by Legislator Colby, seconded by Legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The item carries.
Item number 9, referral 11-0188BR.
Moved by Legislator Colby, seconded by Legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing there's no discussion, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The item carries.
Item number 10, referral 11-189.
Moved by Vice President Barker, seconded by Legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The item carries.
Item number 11, referral 11-0190, authorizing contract.
Moved by Legislator Yolovich, seconded by Legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing there's none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The item carries.
Item number 12, referral 11-0191, authorized contract.
Moved by Legislator Daniele, seconded by Legislator Yolovich. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing there's none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The item carries.
Item number 13, referral 11-0192, authorizing.
Moved by Legislator Daniele, seconded by Legislator Yolovich. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The item carries.
Item number 14, referral 11-0194, extension.
Moved by legislator Daniele, second by legislator Yolovich. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The item carries.
Item number 15, referral 11-0195.
Moved by legislator Valerio, second by legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Legislator Haney.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just like to ask how the low bid compares to the engineer's estimate prepared before bidding.
Through you, Mr. President, low bid was about nearly 27% under the engineer's estimate.
Thank you. Any other discussion at this time? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The item carries. Is there any unfinished business to come before this body tonight? Legislator O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a couple items of unfinished business. One having to do with a report in the Democrat Chronicle this morning talking about the settlement of a lawsuit involving a jail inmate. And I understand that this settlement didn't actually cost the county. I think it was the insurance carrier for the provider of jail services that was a vendee of the county at that time, all of which I suppose is good. But the article made reference to the fact that the county had sued the provider of services in the jail at one point, and that apparently that matter has been dismissed. And I'm wondering if through you, Mr. President, we can get an indication as to whether or not that is in fact the case. If that suit was dismissed by mutual consent, it seemed to indicate, and if we could get some indication as to why this suit was withdrawn.
Through you, Mr. President, I am not familiar with what took place in those proceedings several years ago, but I will look into that and find out and report to the legislator.
I would appreciate that. Thank you, Counsel. And I do have just a couple of other matters. In July, I requested some information through you, Mr. President, to the county attorney again about the fact that the county has apparently entered into a contract with an entity called the Greater Rochester Independent Practice Association to manage certain aspects of county employee health care. And that contract, however, didn't come to the legislature, and I've asked for an opinion as to why why it wouldn't come to the legislature when it seems like the charter would have called for that. And if I could get an opinion through you, Mr. President, from the county law department as to why that contract didn't come before us.
Through you, Mr. President, that is being researched and reviewed, and from our office, I know Meredith Smith has been working on it, Deputy County Attorney. She is not she's on vacation this week. I was unable to get an update from her, but we will get back to the legislator as soon as possible.
We're thinking maybe sometime later this week or the next 10 days or so. Is that possible? I don't know how long she's on vacation.
I would hope by the end of next week she's back about that.
Thank you. And lastly, Mr. President, one other matter that I wrote to the administration on back in July was about the creation of a position for a special counsel of the county executive, asking for some detail with respect to what the funding source for that is and what the duties of the position might entail, so that we can be sure that taxpayers' interests are protected. And I'm wondering if I could get some information through you, Mr. President, on that position.
Through you, Mr. President, that's not an item that I'm familiar with personally, but I do understand it's being worked on, and there should be a response very shortly to the legislator.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else at this time? There being no other unfinished business, Dr. Quattro?
Mr. President, I move this honorable body stand adjourned until Tuesday, September 13th, 2011 at 6 p.m.
Thank you.